I met Sarah at a charity book drive in downtown Portland back in 1988. She was organizing donations, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a faded college sweatshirt. She didn't know I'd just closed a deal that would eventually make me one of the largest private investors in medical technology on the West Coast. She just knew I was the guy who brought 3 boxes of old textbooks and stayed to help sort. The boardroom of Hartford Medical Industries smelled like leather and desperation. 63 years old, and I still got a knot in my stomach walking into that building. Not because I was nervous, because I was tired. Tired of watching my father-in-law Robert Hartford run a company into the ground through sheer arrogance and spite. My wife didn't know. In 34 years of marriage, Sarah never knew that the consulting work I did from my home office meant I owned 38% of her father's company, the company he'd inherited from his father, the company he thought made him better than everyone else, especially me. We lived in a comfortable house in Beaverton, 2,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, where Sarah grew tomatoes every summer. I drove a 6-year-old Subaru. Sarah drove a 4-year-old Honda CR-V. We weren't rich as far as anyone could tell. We were careful, comfortable, content. My daughter Emily, 32. 32 now worked as a public school teacher in Portland. She lived in a nice 2-bedroom apartment in Selwood. Nothing fancy but safe and comfortable. She drove a 3-year-old Toyota that I'd helped her buy when she started teaching. Not because I couldn't afford better, because I didn't want Robert to have any reason to think his money was needed in our lives. Robert Hartford was 71 years old and had spent the last 40 years believing he was a genius businessman. The truth was simpler and sadder. His father had built Hartford Medical Industries from nothing, creating surgical instruments that revolutionized orthopedic procedures in the 1950s and 60s. By the time Robert inherited control in 1985, the company practically ran itself. But Robert had ideas, expensive ideas, bad ideas. I'd met him 6 months after I started dating Sarah. She'd warned me he could be difficult. That was like warning someone the ocean was damp. Robert had taken one look at me, a graduate student working part-time at a community health clinic, and decided I wasn't worth the effort of remembering my name. At our wedding, he'd called me Steve 3 times. My name is David. David Chen. He knew my name. He just didn't think I mattered enough to use it. For the first few years of our marriage, I worked at a community health clinic, making $32,000 a year. Sarah worked as a librarian. We were happy. Robert was not. He made it clear at every family gathering that his daughter had married beneath her station. What Robert didn't know was that I'd been investing since college. Small amounts at first, carefully researched medical technology startups. By 1990, I'd turned $18,000 into $300,000. By 1995, that had become $2.4 million. I lived like I made $32,000 because I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Except I also knew that the moment Robert caught wind of my success, he'd find a way to make it about him or hold it over Sarah's head. The real turning point came in 1994. Hartford Medical Industries was hemorrhaging money. Robert had invested heavily in a new line of products that no one wanted, refusing to listen to his research team. The company's stock was tanking. His board was getting nervous. That's when my attorney, Mitchell Brennan, brought me an opportunity. Several of the company's original investors wanted out. They were offering their shares at a steep discount. Mitchell knew about my investments. He'd been helping me structure them for years, keeping everything separate from Sarah's knowledge. Not hidden exactly, just private. Different accounts, different name on the paperwork routed through my mother's family name, Zhao. I bought 28% of Hartford Medical Industries for $4.2 million. No one knew. The shares were purchased through a private investment firm I'd established. My name never appeared on any public documents. Over the next 15 years, I bought more shares whenever they became available. Always quietly. Always through intermediaries. By 2009, I owned 38%. The largest single shareholder. Larger than Robert's 32%. Larger than the combined institutional investors. And I said nothing. Why people ask me that now? Why didn't I tell Sarah? Why didn't I use the leverage? Because the moment I revealed it, everything would change. Robert would have focused all his attention on fighting me instead of running the company. Sarah would have been caught in the middle. Emily would have grown up watching her grandfather and father wage corporate warfare. So I watched. I attended the shareholders' meetings under my investment company's name, never in person, always by proxy vote. I reviewed every quarterly report. I watched Robert make mistake after mistake, propped up by talented executives who managed to keep the company profitable despite his interference. I kept working at the clinic until 2005, then quietly retired, telling Sarah I was doing consulting work from home. Which wasn't entirely untrue. I consulted with dozens of medical technology companies. I just also happened to own significant portions of many of them. We lived well, but not ostentatiously. I made sure Sarah never felt she was missing out. We took nice vacations. Though Robert always made comments about how I must have saved up for months. We kept Emily in good schools, paid for her college, helped with her apartment, but we didn't flaunt anything. And through it all, Robert Hartford continued to treat me like I was still that graduate student making $32,000 a year. Last month, everything came to a head. Sarah called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Her voice was strained. Dad wants us to come to dinner Friday night. Just us, not Emily. My stomach dropped. Robert only did small family dinners when he wanted something. Did he say why? He said he has something important to discuss, about our future. That Thursday I got a call from Mitchell. You need to hear this, he said. Robert's been talking to board members. He wants to install Bradley as CEO when he retires next year. Bradley Hartford was Robert's son from his first marriage, Sarah's half-brother. 47 years old, never worked anywhere, except companies where his last name bought him the position. He'd been a VP at Hartford Medical for 3 years and had already managed to alienate half the executive team. He can't do that without board approval, I said. He's been working the votes. He's got 3 board members in his pocket. He needs 4 more. He thinks he can get them. What's my proxy vote going to do? Mitchell was quiet for a moment. David, you don't have a proxy vote anymore. Under the company bylaws, shareholders with more than 35% have to attend board meetings in person or send a registered representative. You've been skirting it because you've stayed just under the threshold with your public shares, but you haven't attended a meeting in person in 15 years. What are you saying? I'm saying if you want to block this, you're going to have to show up. You're going to have to reveal yourself. I sat in my home office for 3 hours that afternoon, staring at the wall. The wall where I'd hung my medical technology patents. The wall Sarah thought was just decorated with interesting framed documents I'd collected. I could have walked away, sold my shares quietly, let Robert install Bradley, and watch the company collapse within 5 years, because that's exactly what would happen. But Hartford Medical Industries employed 840 people, good people, engineers and researchers and manufacturing workers who'd done nothing wrong except work for a company run by a man more interested in legacy than competence. And then there was Emily. She didn't work for the company, but Sarah did care about it. It was her family's legacy, even if her father had never included her in any decisions about it. Friday came. Sarah and I drove to Robert's house in West Lynn, 6,000 square feet overlooking the Willamette River, the house he'd bought in 1998, when the company had a particularly good year. The house he constantly reminded everyone he owned. Margaret, Robert's second wife, opened the door. She had always been kinder than Robert, though she had never stood up to him. Not where it mattered. "David, Sarah, come in. Robert's in the study." The study smelled like cigars and old leather. Robert sat behind his desk like a king granting audience. He stood when we entered, but barely. "Sarah, David, sit down." We sat in the chairs across from his desk, not the comfortable armchairs by the fireplace, the straight-backed chairs that made you feel like you were being interviewed. "I'll get right to it," Robert said. "I'm retiring next year. I'll be 72, and it's time." Sarah reached for my hand. I squeezed back. "I'm installing Bradley as CEO. The board meeting is in 3 weeks. I wanted to tell you personally." Sarah's grip tightened. "Dad, I thought the board had to approve the CEO. They will. I've got the votes. What about the executive team? Don't they have input?" Robert waved his hand dismissively. "They'll adjust. Bradley knows the business." I said nothing. I'd learned years ago that arguing with Robert was pointless. He didn't hear other perspectives. He heard challenges to his authority. "There's something else," Robert continued, and I felt the trap closing. "I know things have been tight for you two. I see that David's still working from home doing whatever consulting work he does." He said consulting work like it was a euphemism for unemployment. "I've spoken to Bradley. We'd like to offer David a position at the company. Nothing executive, of course, but we need someone to oversee facilities management. It pays $65,000 a year, full benefits. It's honest work, and God knows you could use the stability." Facilities management. $65,000. To oversee janitors and maintenance workers. Sarah's hand was trembling in mine. I could feel her humiliation radiating like heat. 34 years of her father's condescension, and here was the final insult. Offering her husband a job overseeing custodians at the company her grandfather built. "I appreciate the offer," I said, my voice steady. "Can I think about it?" Robert looked surprised. He'd expected me to refuse to give him another reason to call me proud and ungrateful. "Of course, take your time, but the position starts in 2 months." Dinner was excruciating. Margaret had prepared pot roast. Robert talked about his retirement plans, the golf he'd play, the travel he'd do. He talked about Bradley's vision for the company. He didn't ask Sarah about her work at the library. He didn't ask Mo anything. As we were leaving, Robert pulled me aside. "David, I know you've got pride, but pride doesn't pay bills. This is a good opportunity. For Sarah's sake, I hope you'll take it." I drove home in silence. Sarah was crying quietly in the passenger seat. "I'm so sorry," she finally said. "I knew he could be cruel, but this... It's okay. It's not okay. Facilities management. Like you're some kind of failure who needs charity." "Sarah." I pulled over into a grocery store parking lot and turned to face her. "I need to tell you something." And I almost did. Almost told her everything right there. But I saw her face, saw the hurt and anger and embarrassment. And I realized this wasn't the moment. This moment was about her father's cruelty. If I revealed the truth now, it would look like I'd been keeping score. Like I'd been waiting for the right moment to humiliate her father. "What?" she asked. "I love you. That's what I need to tell you. I love you, and your father's opinion of me doesn't matter. It never has." She leaned against me and cried harder. That night I called Mitchell. "I need you to send a letter to the Hartford Medical Industries Board of Directors. Inform them that David Zhao Chen, majority shareholder representative of Zhao Investment Holdings, will be attending the next board meeting in person. Include documentation of all shareholdings under the Zhao family trust. You're sure about this? I'm sure. What do you want me to tell Sarah? Nothing yet. Let me handle that part. I spent the weekend trying to find the right words. How do you tell your wife of 34 years that you've been keeping a secret this big? Not because you didn't trust her, but because you were trying to protect her. Sunday night after Emily had left from our usual family dinner, I told Sarah we needed to talk. We sat on the back porch, where we'd sat thousands of times before, where we'd talked about everything from Emily's college choices to what color to paint the kitchen. Remember when we met? I started. At the book drive. Of course. You asked me what I did, and I told you I worked at the clinic and did some investing on the side. I remember. The investing part. It went better than I expected. A lot better. I watched her face, trying to gauge her reaction. How much better? She asked carefully. In 1994, when your father's company was struggling, some investors wanted to sell their shares. I bought them. Sarah was very still. How many shares? 28%. And over the years, I bought more whenever they became available. I now own 38% of Hartford Medical Industries. I'm the largest shareholder. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. 38%, she repeated. For how long? I reached 38% in 2009, but I've been a major shareholder since 1994. 27 years. Her voice was hollow. You've owned part of my family's company for 27 years and never told me. I kept it in a separate trust under my mother's family name. Your name was never on anything because I didn't want you involved if things went wrong, if your father found out and tried to retaliate somehow. Retaliate, David, he's my father, and he's spent 34 years treating me like hired help. What do you think he would have done if he'd known I owned more of his company than he did? Sarah stood up and walked to the edge of the porch. Her shoulders were shaking. You should have told me. I know. I had a right to know. You did. You're right. She turned back to me, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not anger. Something worse. Betrayal. Were you ever going to tell me, or were you just going to keep playing this game? It wasn't a game, Sarah. I was protecting you. From what? From knowing that we didn't have to live like this. That Emily didn't have to take out student loans when we could have paid for college outright. That I didn't have to feel embarrassed every time my father made some comment about money. We live well. Emily's loans are reasonable, and your father's comments say more about him than they ever did about us. That's not the point. Her voice cracked. The point is you made that decision for me. For 34 years, you decided what I should and shouldn't know about our financial situation, about my own family's company. She was right. I'd been so focused on protecting her from the conflict, from the stress of being caught between her father and me, that I'd never stopped to think about what I was taking from her. The right to make her own choices. The right to know the truth. I'm sorry, I said. You're absolutely right. I should have told you years ago. Why now? Why are you telling me now? Because your father is trying to install Bradley as CEO, and I have to stop him. The company will be destroyed within 5 years if Bradley takes over. 840 people will lose their jobs. And the only way to stop it is to attend the board meeting in person and vote against it, which means everyone will know. Sarah sat back down, her head in her hands. This is insane. This is completely insane. I know. How much? She asked after a long moment. How much is 38% worth? At current valuation, about $530 million. She laughed. It was not a happy sound. 530 million. We've been clipping coupons for groceries. You like clipping coupons. You said it's satisfying. Don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't make jokes right now. I'm not joking. I'm serious. You like the life we've built. You've said 100 times you're happy. Would you have been happier knowing you were married to someone worth $500 million? Would that have made the Sunday morning breakfasts better? Would that have made Emily's childhood better? It would have made it honest. And there it was, the real issue. Not the money, the honesty. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Sarah spoke. The board meeting is in 3 weeks. Yes. And you're going to vote against Bradley. Yes. What happens then? I don't know. Your father will find out who I am. He'll probably have a stroke. The board will want to know why I've been silent all these years. There will be questions. Lots of questions. Will you lose the shares? No. Everything was done legally. Mitchell made sure of that. Sarah stood up again. I need some time to process this. I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. Okay. I'm not leaving you. I just need space to think. I understand. She paused at the door. David. One question. Anything. Did you ever use your position to help my father? Behind the scenes, to keep the company stable? I nodded. Every quarter. Every time he tried something that would have hurt the company, I voted against it through proxy. Every time the board wanted to remove him, I voted to keep him. Because he's your father, and because removing him would have hurt you. She absorbed this. Then she went inside, packed a bag, and left. Emily called the next morning. Mom's here. She told me everything. Dad, what the hell? I know. No, I don't think you do. This is crazy. You're secretly rich and you never told anyone. I'm not secretly rich. I'm privately wealthy. There's a difference. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Emily, would your life have been better if you'd grown up knowing your father was worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Would you have worked as hard in school? Would you have become a teacher? She was quiet for a moment. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You became a teacher because you loved teaching. Not because you needed the money, but because it's what you wanted to do. Would you have felt that freedom if you'd grown up in a mansion, if everyone knew your family was wealthy? You don't get to decide that for me. You're right. I don't. And I'm sorry. Grandpa is going to lose his mind. I know. Are you really going to vote against Bradley? I have to. Bradley will destroy the company. All those people will lose their jobs. Your grandfather's father built something amazing, and I can't let it be ruined by ego and nepotism. Emily sighed. Mom's really hurt, Dad. I know she is. Fix this. Whatever you have to do, fix this. The board meeting was scheduled for a Wednesday morning at 9. I spent the 3 weeks preparing. Mitchell briefed me on every board member, every political alliance, every potential challenge to my authority. Sarah came home after 5 days. We talked. Really talked, maybe for the first time in years. I explained everything. How I'd built my wealth, why I'd kept it separate, what I'd been trying to protect her from. She listened. She was still hurt, still angry, but she listened. I wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me, she said finally. It wasn't about trust. It was about love. I didn't want you to have to choose between me and your father. I didn't want you to be in the middle of a fight. You put me in the middle anyway, just without giving me any say in it. She was right again. The Tuesday before the board meeting, I called Robert. Robert, it's David. David. Have you thought about the facilities management position? I have. I'm going to have to decline. I have a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest? What conflict could you possibly have? I'll explain tomorrow. I'll be attending the board meeting. There was a long pause. The board meeting. Why would you attend the board meeting? I'm a shareholder. I have some concerns about the CEO succession plan. You're not a shareholder. Actually, I am. A rather significant one. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Robert. I hung up before he could respond. That night, Sarah held my hand across the dinner table. Are you ready for this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. My father is going to be furious. I know. He might never speak to us again. I know that too. She squeezed my hand. Then let's make it count. Wednesday morning, I wore a suit I kept in the back of my closet. Not from a discount store. A suit I'd bought 5 years ago for occasions that never came. Tom Ford tailored charcoal gray. Sarah had never seen it. She watched me get dressed. You look different, she said. I feel different. We drove to the Hartford Medical Industries headquarters in Hillsborough. The building was modern glass and steel, built in 2007 when the company had expanded. I'd approved that expansion as a shareholder. I'd voted for the building design. I'd never been inside. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for the boardroom. The board meeting is private, sir. Are you here for? I'm here for the board meeting. David Chen representing Zhao Investment Holdings. Her eyes widened. She made a phone call. 2 minutes later, Bradley Hartford came storming into the lobby. You can't be here. This is a closed meeting. I'm a shareholder. Check your records. He pulled out his phone, made an angry call. I watched his face change as whoever he was talking to confirmed my identity. How much do you own? That's a matter of record. Shall we go to the boardroom? The boardroom was on the top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Tualatin Valley. 12 people sat around a conference table. Robert was at the head. He saw me and stood up. What is this, David? This is a private meeting. Mr. Hartford, one of the board members. A woman named Patricia Chen, no relation, said carefully. Mr. David Chen is registered as the representative for Zhao Investment Holdings, which owns 38% of the company. The room went silent. Robert looked at Patricia, then back at Patricia. That's impossible. It's not impossible, I said quietly. It's documented. Mitchell Brennan, my attorney, submitted all the paperwork 3 weeks ago. I apologize for not attending meetings in person before now. I've been voting by proxy. Who are you? Robert asked, his face going red. I'm your son-in-law. I've been married to your daughter for 34 years, and I've been the largest shareholder in your company for 15 of those years. Bradley moved toward me. This is some kind of fraud. You're trying to... I'm not trying to do anything except exercise my rights as a shareholder. Now I believe there's a vote scheduled today regarding CEO succession. I'd like to table that vote and propose an alternative. Robert sat down heavily. He looked 10 years older than he had 3 weeks ago. How? He asked. How is this possible? I've been investing in medical technology since college. I was good at it. When your company ran into trouble in the 90s, I bought shares from investors who wanted out. I continued buying whenever shares became available. I kept it quiet because I didn't want it to affect my relationship with your daughter or my family. You've been lying for 34 years. No, I've been private. There's a difference. Patricia cleared her throat. Mr. Chen, David, what alternative are you proposing? Bradley's not ready to be CEO. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the support of the executive team. And frankly, he doesn't have the vision this company needs to compete in the next decade. How dare you? Bradley started. I propose we hire Janet Morrison as CEO. She's currently COO at MedTech Solutions. She has 20 years of experience in medical device manufacturing, and she's been on our short list for executive positions 3 times. I've reviewed her credentials. She's exactly what this company needs. Robert was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You've reviewed her credentials. I've reviewed every major decision this company has made for 15 years, Robert. Every expansion, every product line, every executive hire. I've been protecting this company while you've been trying to turn it into a monument to your ego." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Vote," I said to the board. "Janet Morrison as CEO, or we spend the next 6 months in a battle that will destroy shareholder value and company morale. Your choice." The vote was 8-4 in favor of Janet Morrison. Robert and Bradley voted against it along with 2 board members Robert had in his pocket. Everyone else voted for Morrison. After the meeting, Robert cornered me in the hallway. "You did this to humiliate me." "No, I did this to save the company your father built. If humiliating you was the goal, I could have done it 1,000 times over the last 30 years. Sarah knows. She does now. What does she think of her husband, the liar? She thinks I should have told her the truth a long time ago, and she's right." Robert looked at me for a long moment. "I never liked you. I know. But you've been voting to keep me on the board all these years. Why? Because you're Sarah's father. Because Emily loves her grandfather. Because family is complicated. And sometimes you protect people even when they don't deserve it." He didn't say anything else, just walked away. I found Sarah waiting in the lobby. She'd come after all, though she'd stayed downstairs. "How did it go?" "Morrison got the vote. Your father is furious. Bradley is probably calling lawyers right now. And us, I don't know. That's up to you." She took my hand. "Let's go home." That night, Emily came over for dinner. She hugged me at the door. "Grandpa called. He's taking a leave of absence from the company. Says he needs time to think." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He needed to learn he's not the center of the universe. And honestly, I'm kind of proud of you. You could have destroyed him if you wanted to. You didn't. He's your grandfather. He's also a stubborn old man who's been mean to you for my entire life. You had every right to be vindictive, and you weren't." Later, after Emily left, Sarah and I sat on the back porch again. "So, what now?" she asked. "Now we figure out what we want to do with the rest of our lives. I'm 63. You're 61. We're financially secure, to put it mildly. What do you want to do?" "I want to keep working at the library. I love my job." "Okay." "I want to help Emily buy a house." "Absolutely." "I want to take a real vacation. Not a budget vacation where we worry about costs. I want to see Italy. The real Italy, not just Rome and Florence. The small towns." "Done. And I want you to promise me no more secrets, even if you think you're protecting me." "No more secrets." She leaned against me. $530 million, she said softly. I'm still processing that. It's just a number. We're the same people we were a month ago. Are we? Though I feel like I'm learning who you really are for the first time. You know who I am. I'm the guy who brought 3 boxes of textbooks to a book drive in 1988. I'm the guy who loves Sunday morning breakfasts and reading next to you on rainy evenings. The money doesn't change that. But it changes what's possible. Maybe. But what's possible and what's important are 2 different things. You taught me that. She smiled. I did. You did. Every time you chose a quiet evening at home over something expensive. Every time you said the simple things were the best things. You taught me that wealth isn't about what you have. It's about what you choose to do with it. 3 months later, Janet Morrison was installed as CEO of Hartford Medical Industries. The company stock rose 14% in her first quarter. Employee satisfaction surveys showed the highest ratings in 5 years. Robert came to Thanksgiving dinner. He was quieter than usual. He and I didn't talk much, but he hugged Sarah before he left and told her he was proud of her. Not for anything specific, just proud. Emily bought a 3-bedroom house in Milwaukee with our help. She was still teaching, still passionate about education. But now she had a guest room and a garden and the security of knowing she'd never have to worry about mortgage payments. Sarah and I spent 3 weeks in Italy that fall. We stayed in small hotels in Tuscany, walked through medieval villages, ate at trattorias, where no one spoke English. We talked about everything. About the years of secrets, about what we wanted our future to look like, about how strange it was to suddenly not have to check price tags. One evening, sitting at an outdoor cafe in Montepulciano, Sarah asked me a question. Do you regret it? Keeping the secret for so long, I thought about it. I regret not trusting you with the truth, but I don't regret protecting you from the fight. If I'd told you 30 years ago, you would have been caught in the middle. Your father would have made it impossible, and I couldn't bear the thought of you having to choose. You chose for me. I did, and that was wrong, but I'd be lying if I said I regret trying to protect you. She reached across the table and took my hand. I understand why you did it. I'm still angry about it sometimes, but I understand. That's all I can ask for. Back home, I started working with the company more actively. Not as CEO, but as a board member who actually showed up to meetings. I pushed for better benefits for employees, for investment in research and development for sustainable growth instead of quarterly earnings obsessions. People asked me why I lived the way I did, why I didn't have a mansion, why I drove a Subaru, why my wife still worked at the library. I told them the truth. Because this is the life we chose. Because wealth is a tool, not an identity. Because the Sunday morning breakfasts and the walks in the rain and the quiet evenings reading beside each other were never about money. They were about building something that mattered with someone I loved. Robert never apologized, not in words. But 6 months after the board meeting, he invited us to dinner. Just us. No agenda, no speeches. We ate Margaret's pot roast and talked about Emily's new house and Sarah's new position as head librarian. As we were leaving, Robert stopped me at the door. You could have taken the company from me. I could have. Why didn't you? Because it was never about the company, Robert. It was about protecting my family. That includes you whether you like it or not. He nodded slowly. Then, for the first time in 34 years, he called me by my name. Thank you, David. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even friendship. But it was a beginning. I'm 64 now. Sarah and I still live in the same house in Beaverton. I still drive a Subaru, though I bought a new one last year. We still clip coupons, not because we need to, but because Sarah enjoys it. The difference is now we know what we have. Not just the money, but the choice. The freedom to live exactly the life we want, on exactly our terms, without proving anything to anyone. Emily asked me once if I thought I'd done the right thing, keeping the secret for so long. I told her the truth. I did what I thought was best with the information I had at the time. Would I do it differently now, maybe? Probably, but I can't regret the choices that led to the life I have now, with the people I love doing work that matters. That's the thing about secrets. They're heavy. They cost you something even when you think you're protecting people. But sometimes the cost is worth it. Not because the secret was right, but because the intention behind it was love. And in the end, that's all any of us really have. The choices we make, the people we protect, and the hope that when everything comes to light, love is enough to see us through. It was enough for us.